On a day when the plains lay silent under a burning sky, Elias Thorne expected nothing more than another quiet hour of mending harnesses. But then, out of the shimmering heat, a young woman in a torn bridal gown crawled toward him. Dust tangled in her hair, terror flooding her eyes, her breath shuddering as if she'd outrun death itself. She gripped his collar with trembling fists and whispered, "Please, they're close." Elias didn't yet know who "they" were, but from that moment, his quiet life was over. But ask yourself, who was this mysterious bride running from? Why did she cross miles of scorching land to reach a man she had never met? And what secret was chasing her with enough fury to send armed riders thundering across the plains? To uncover the truth hidden behind her terror, stay with me till the very end. And if this story already has your heart racing, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next twist waiting in the dust. Before we go any further, tell me, from where in the world are you listening to this story today? The young woman in the frayed ivory gown burst from the scorching haze as if pursued by shadows from the edge of creation itself. She tripped over the brittle turf, dropped to her knees, then inched forward on hands and knees those final yards until she collapsed against Elias Thorne. And before the weathered homesteader could even grasp what unfolded before him, she clutched his collar with trembling fists and panted as though she'd surfaced from depths she'd lingered in far too long. Elias had weathered tempests, coiled serpents, and fellows so inebriated they'd brawl with their own reflections, but nothing could have braced him for the vision of a frightened maiden crumbling at his stable's threshold, her bridal shroud trailing after her like a spectral wisp. Her words fractured the air. "Please, oh please, aid me! They're drawing near!" Elias let the harness he'd been mending slip from his grasp. The woman quivered with such force that grit tumbled from her sleeves with each ragged inhale. Her gown hung ragged at the skirt's edge, her trestles tangled with brambles and perspiration, and her gaze stretched wide like a fawn that had fled beyond its limits, swift and relentless. He knelt at her side. "Steady now, easy does it. Speak to me. What's past?" But she merely shook her head and seized him once more, fiercer this time, nearly frantic. I couldn't go through with it. I couldn't wed that fellow. I fled. I simply had to." Elias scanned the vast meadowlands. A distant smudge of earth hovered along the skyline. Perhaps horsemen, perhaps peril, perhaps the very cause of her shivering like foliage in a frost. He tilted her chin with care. "Are you wounded, overwhelmed? Draw breath, child, or you'll faint here amid the soil." She leaned her brow to his torso, not in affection, but in raw dread, as if he alone remained the firm anchor in a realm that had sought to consume her utterly. Elias sensed a stir deep within, ancient and burdensome, an echo he'd interred long past when the healer declared his spouse wouldn't endure the illness, a sensation he'd believed vanished for good. She murmured once more, "You're the sole soul who's ever offered me gentleness. I knew nowhere else to turn." Elias regarded her delicate, quaking fingers knotted in his shirt front. He eyed the swelling haze on the brink, expanding with every heartbeat. He surveyed the boundless, barren meadows that had long been his serene refuge. And for the first time in a decade, Elias felt a peril stir, a duty, and perhaps something riskier still, possibility. He raised her tenderly upright. "Keep close behind. Whatever approaches, it'll meet me before it reaches you." The woman gulped and lifted her gaze to him, brimming with faith he felt unworthy of. And in that instant, Elias Thorne comprehended a plain truth. Once those horsemen arrived, his existence would change beyond recall. Yet he remained ignorant of the deeper story. He hadn't fathomed the true impetus for her dash across the meadows in her bridal attire. What dire mystery compels a novice bride to abandon her ceremony and cast herself upon the mercy of a solitary homesteader? Elias sensed her fingers tighten at his shirt's hem as the haze along the horizon swelled onward. He couldn't gauge the riders' number, but he grasped one certainty. Whoever they proved to be, they weren't galloping so fiercely merely to deliver blossoms. The woman strove to hold firm, but her legs faltered anew. Elias steadied her arm ere she tumble. Now there, breathe deep and even, or you'll tumble once more. She dipped her head, yet her respiration raced on, that frantic rhythm that seeps in only when alarm has burrowed into one's marrow. The atmosphere hung thicker with warmth than seemed right. The meadowlands lay hushed in that eerie manner that precedes unrest. Elias had dwelt in these expanses long enough to recognize such piercing stillness boded ill. She swept a lock from her brow. Her palms quivered. "They'll fault you. They'll claim you abetted my flight. You oughtn't linger by me." Elias huffed gently, as if bemused by her words. "My dear, folks fault me even when I'm solitary, mending barriers. I suspect I'll weather it." His timber held even keel, yet beneath lurked a gravity she perceived. A soul who'd forfeited all once before fears not mere clamor. She studied him, perplexed, fearful, and perhaps a flicker more. Admiration, reliance, a spark that he might be the one figure in this parched expanse who wouldn't cast her to the hounds. Elias placed his palm to her spine, just long enough to calm her inhalations. "You spoke of fleeing. Share the cause. Tell me swiftly, ere those riders close in." The woman swallowed sharply, enough that Elias marked her throat's tremor. "My sire forged a pact. He bears a debt. I'm the settlement. Bound to wed a gentleman near old enough for his elder. He vowed mend all." She daubed her cheek with her wrist's edge. "I couldn't draw air. I couldn't step into that chapel, so I bolted." Then, in a hush laced with her own trepidation, she added, "I yearn for intimacy, not the sort they imposed, the sort that revives the spirit." Elias felt ire kindle in within, gradual and searing, like embers rekindling. He'd known hardships, witnessed souls forge cruel bargains, but bartering one's daughter as recompense? That wound cut profounder than any chronicle in memory. The horseman neared. He caught the distant chime of iron and knew its import, armed and resolute. He edged ahead from her, instinctive. "Remain at my rear. Whatever unfolds, don't bolt again." She met his eyes, laced with dread and a glimmer of conviction. "Why shield me thus? Why hazard all for a stranger scarce known?" He held his silence, for how to voice the warmth in his core when she crumpled before him? How to convey why he couldn't abandon her to this solitary? And the gravest query loomed yet. What course would Elias chart when those riders attained the homestead and insist he yield her? The horseman breached Elias Thorne's boundaries swifter than anticipated. The thunder of mounts rolled over the arid soil, ponderous and unyielding, as if discord arrived punctual. Haze surged in their wake as they reined near the paddock's barrier, and Elias felt the woman at his back clutch his shirt anew. 5 in number, stern-visaged fellows attired tidy as townsfolk, not field hands, the sort convinced coin procured all, even a quaking maiden in nuptial finishery. One doffed his cap. "Good day, Elias. We're seeking a fleeing bride. Reckoned she might have veered this path. Care if we glance about?" He held firm, unswayed as a post driven deep into clay. His tone remained serene, yet bore a heft that stilled the riders. "You gentlemen recall, none traverse my grounds sans my consent." The lanky one curved his lips, a grin that touched not his eyes. "Her sire claims she's addled, bolted ere the pledges. We're tasked to retrieve her, civilly, without strife." Elias advanced a measured pace, and post-retrieval, what manner of civility awaits? The lanky one shrugged. "Hinges on her resistance, Elias." Behind him, the woman clamped palms to lips, stifling utterance. He sensed her shudder, as if bare on ice. Elias's mandible set. "You know I dwell apart."
Shunned meddling in affairs, but a maiden fleeing in bridal garb? That's no commonplace affair. The men traded glances. The lanky one bent in his seat. Elias, spare us the strain. We seek no discord. Elias locked eyes. Discords arrived. Quietude unfurled over the homestead like creeping dusk. A raptor wheeled above. Afar, a weathered rail groaned in the breeze. The lanky one broke the hush at last. Yield passage. Surrender her. This quarrel's not yours. Elias's pitch sunk low, stirring unease even in the steeds. Perhaps not, but she sought me out. Till she declares elsewise, she abides. The woman loosed a faint sigh, that release when one grasps another's bulwark against peril. The lanky rider eased back. Final offer. Yield her, and we depart peaceably. Deny, and clamor ensues. Elias raised his chin, gaze unwavering, frame braced as ancient oaks. Gentlemen, depart peaceably now, or test fate. But regardless, she stays. The horsemen regarded him, pondering paths, and the meadows seemed to suspend breath. If you're inclined to linger, this tale stretches far, so kindly tap that follow if you will, ere the path turns arduous. Brew a soothing mug of herbal brew, nestle comfortably, and share the hour and locale from whence you tune in today. The horsemen lingered immobile at first. They merely fidgeted astride, pondering if Elias Thorne had taken leave of senses or if his declarations rang utterly earnest. The sun crested bold, golding the haze like tendrils from a languid blaze. Such swelter-shortened fuses rendered decisions hazardous. The lanky rider clucked softly. Elias, you're erring gravely. Stand clear, and none suffer harm. Her sire desires her intact, merely daunted and muddled. Nothing beyond. Elias fixed on him, unblinking. If mere muddle ailed her, she wouldn't traverse half these meadows, garb rent and pulse thundering. Spare that tale for eyes blind to dread. The lanky one inclined nearer. Elias, you're a fine steward of land, but reason eludes you. Would you forfeit your tranquility for an acquaintance scarce met? Elias exhaled measuredly. I may not know her depths yet, but I discern her flight's origin and its aim. That suffices. At his rear, the woman edged nearer, her form grazing him, a subtle press conveying her lingering alarm, yet a trust surpassing all prior bonds. Elias felt it ignite, threading to recesses he deemed eternal chilled. The lanky one signaled his band at length. Ransack the stable, the outbuilding. If she's here, we claim her. Should he impede, we address him. Elias advanced, stationing firm betwixt riders and stable portal. As if fused to the loam, none probes aught save their own scruples. This soil is mine, my decree governs. Not one soul crosses this line. A fledgling rider scoffed. Elias, we're fivefold. You can't prevail against us. Elias's smile emerged, yet lacked warmth. You may hold true, but heed this vow. Should you seek that woman, muster more hands and sounder cause. The riders wavered. A youth fidgeted restless astride. He bent to the lanky one, murmuring, Chief, that's Elias Thorne. Recall the Harlan-kin. He felled them all three solo on the fated frontier trail. I won't die here over another's ledger. Not this day. Not from dread of his blows, but a timbre in his voice whispering he'd reconciled with fate's decree. The meadows hushed and knew, that prelude to verdict, and this crux would shape all. Would those horsemen relent? or compel a clash reshaping destinies. The lanky one elevated his palm at last, and the others drew reins taut. A prolonged hush prevailed. Soul murmur, zephyrs sifting through sear blades, ferrying taut quietude across Elias Thorne's domain. It seemed the meadows poised to witness the narrative's bend. The lanky one eyed Elias afresh, a novel glint in his stare. Not ire, not vanity, perhaps qualm, or nearer, esteem. He cleared his gullet and uttered, crisp, yet composed. If she spurns return, our task ends. This rests between her and sire henceforth. Elias stirred not. He pivoted faintly, granting her space to advance if she so inclined. Her grasp quaked still, but her timber had fortified. Steadier, as one reclaiming dominion over her path, she faced the riders and declared, I'm no addled soul, no chattel. I return not. The lanky one inclined his head once. As you will, but her sire will chafe. She inhaled profoundly. That's his yoke, not mine. The lanky one fixed Elias long. You prevail this day, Thorne, but her sire won't overlook, nor shall I. The horsemen wheeled mounts and departed leisurely, trailing in a longed veil of haze. Elias watched until they dwindled to specks, devoured by the brink. Only then did he turn to the woman at his side. You bore it well. Her voice wavered fresh. Elias, you championed me when everyone else withheld. Why? He swabbed moisture from his forehead, offering a weary, faint curve of lips. For at times one craves an ally at their flank, even when the world deems it unwise. Solitary flight endures but so long, and none merits bartering as ledgers toll. She glanced to her rent gown. Then, what path now? Whither shall I venture? Elias drew a deliberate breath, that taken when resolve blooms in the soul, ere the mind aligns. Commence anew, here if you suit, and claim your stance. Should gales arise, confront with lifted gaze and unbent spine. Existence spares not kindness always, yet you needn't yield. She inclined her head, saline trails tracing her contours silently. Not fear this eve, but easement, liberation, prospect to forge her morrow. Elias gazed over the unfettered expanse. You see, fortitude lies not ever in strife. Often choices, opting to depart, to hold firm, to surpass the lots bestowed. Then he angled toward her. And to elect whom you entrust your days to, now permit a query. What choice would you forge between serenity and rectitude? If this narrative stirs you, lend a nod of favor to extend its reach to one perhaps needing resolution this day. And for further tales alike, kindly follow that none escape your ken. Brew a soothing mug of herbal brew, nestle comfortably, and share your locale in the present hour as you heed.